The relay log had 63 entries. The last 6 did not belong there. I found them at the 3rd hour of my review, sitting in the queue like stones someone had placed on a clean desk. Methodical, time-stamped, filed in correct sequence, and issued by an authority I did not recognize. The header read Terran Mutual Aid Relay, Waystation Auric 9, auto-forward, triggered. Beneath it, my own distress signal, my own words. The evacuation plea I had composed for the Hegemony's regional response desk at the 14th hour of the Vthon 7 collapse, routed through our standard emergency channel, formatted to Hegemony protocol, addressed to Hegemony recipients. The humans had a copy of it before the Hegemony's intake clerk had opened the file. I sat back in my chair and looked out through the observation deck's viewport. The amber light of our system's star fell across the docking approach corridor in long, warm bands, and the last of the 3 human ships, a supply vessel, wide-bellied and unhurried, was completing its departure vector. Its hull was the color of old iron. It had no markings I could cross-reference in any registry I could access. I watched it until it cleared the corridor threshold, and then I turned back to the log. I needed to understand how this had happened. My station's legal office would need to understand. The Hegemony's intake clerk, when she eventually opened my file, asked me to explain why the crisis had been resolved by parties not listed on my contact authorization. I began at the beginning. The signal left my station at hour 14. I had filed it correctly. I am a careful administrator, and Sector Vthon 7 had been in my portfolio for 11 years. I knew the routing codes. I knew the priority flags. I had designated it Category 1 Humanitarian Displacement, attached the population census, attached the geological survey confirming the subsurface collapse rate, and sent it directly to the Hegemony Regional Response Desk via the primary emergency channel with a redundant copy to the secondary humanitarian relay hub at Jessen Station. The log confirmed all of this. My signal went where I aimed it. What I had not known, what no one in my office had known, because the survey was 4 centuries old, and the infrastructure registry had not been audited in my lifetime, was that our primary emergency channel still carried a side-lobe handshake protocol with Waystation Auric 9. I had to look up Waystation Auric 9. The search returned a single record, pre-diaspora human navigational relay, established before the current era of galactic contact, rated as decommissioned, flagged in our registry as dormant. The flag was wrong. The station was not dormant. It had been operational, apparently without interruption, for the entire 4 centuries since we had last thought to check. I do not know who maintained it. I did not find that in the log. What I found was the handshake. At hour 14 and 4 seconds, Waystation Auric 9 received my signal's side lobe echo. The station's auto-forward protocol, active unchanged. Written in a programming language my staff could not immediately parse, identified the intent as a Category 1 humanitarian displacement event and queried its routing table. The routing table was also old, contained a mutual aid registry entry linking Category 1 humanitarian events in our sector to a human patrol fleet operating under something called the Outer Reaches Cooperative Defense and Assistance Compact, Article 7, Subclause 3. I looked up the compact. My legal office had no record of it. The search returned a secondary archive result, a minor multilateral agreement, signed in the early contact period, never formally dissolved, never formally renewed, simply continuing to exist the way old paperwork continues to exist when no one has occasion to challenge it. Sector's original administrative body had been a signatory. That administrative body had been dissolved and reorganized twice since the signing. We were apparently still on the distribution list. At hour 14 and 9 seconds, Waystation Auric 9 transmitted my evacuation plea, my words, my census attachment, my geological survey, to the patrol frigate Cassines Ridge, currently operating 3 light hours from Vthon 7. Frigate's captain, a woman whose name appeared in the log as Keoduya, received the forward at hour 14 and 12 seconds. Her response, logged at hour 14 and 19 seconds, was 7 words. Received confirm humanitarian displacement, Vthon 7, diverting now, 7 words. No query to a superior, no confirmation request to my office, no check against authorization. She had received a forward signal from a 4-century-old relay station, citing an agreement nobody had read in living memory, and she had written 7 words and turned her ship. I had not known any of this at hour 14. I had known it at hour 15, when an unfamiliar vessel appeared on my approach corridor sensors and transmitted a standard docking request. The request cited Article 7 of the Outer Reaches Compact. My docking controller, who had also not heard of the compact, had asked me what to do. I had told her to grant it, because the alternative was to leave a human frigate sitting in my corridor while I researched treaty law, and I could see on the secondary screen that Vthon 7's subsurface collapse rate had increased 17%. Since I had filed my signal, frigate docked. 2 supply vessels followed, summoned by Captain Oduya from a depot run she had been midway through. The humans unloaded equipment I had not requested: habitat modules, water processing units, a medical bay that folded out of a single cargo container with a precision that one of my technical staff later described as uncomfortable to watch. They coordinated with my evacuation teams without being briefed. They asked for a manifest of what was on the surface. They were given one. They used it. At hour 20, the last of the Vthon 7 population was aboard. The Hegemony's regional response desk sent a confirmation ping at hour 22, acknowledging receipt of my original signal and advising that a preliminary assessment team would be dispatched within 72 hours. The humans were already loaded and underway. I had watched the first ship depart from this same viewport, and then the second, and now I was watching the third. And I was reading a routing log that explained, with complete procedural clarity, exactly how none of this had been intended for them. My signal had not been aimed at the Terran fleet. My sector had not engaged Article 7 of the Outer Reaches Compact. I had not known Article 7 existed. I had not known Waystation Auric 9 was listening. The supply vessel cleared the corridor threshold and was gone. I found Captain Oduya's acknowledgement in my queue, filed at hour 21. It was a standard departure, brief and correctly formatted, signed with her name and her vessel's registry number. At the bottom, in a field labeled compact citation, she had written, Article 7, Subclause 3, Humanitarian displacement confirmed, action taken, no further response required from your office. No further response required from your office. I set the acknowledgement aside and opened a new document. I had to write an incident report. My legal office required one whenever external parties participated in a sector emergency response. I wrote the date, the event, the population count, the resolution. I wrote a summary of the routing chain. I wrote that the response had been provided by Terran vessels operating under the Outer Reaches Cooperative Defense and Assistance Compact. I came to the field labeled Authorization Basis and stopped. The authorization basis was a side-lobe handshake with a relay station we had not audited in 4 centuries, which had forwarded my signal under a mutual aid registry entry connecting us to a fleet I had not contacted under a treaty my legal office had no current record of, which a patrol captain had acted on in 19 seconds without waiting for my confirmation. See attached routing log. I came to the field labeled Outcome Assessment and stopped again. The population of Vthon 7 was safe. My evacuation had completed 6 hours ahead of any timeline I had projected when I filed the signal. The habitat modules the humans had left behind were rated for the climate. The water processing units were already running. I had not asked for any of it. I had not known to ask. I wrote, Outcome satisfactory. I came to the field labeled Notes and I sat for a while. Through the viewport, the approach corridor was empty and amber-lit. The sun was moving toward its afternoon position. My station was quiet in the way that stations are quiet after a crisis has been resolved and the next crisis has not yet arrived. I wrote, the signal was not aimed at them. The relay was not supposed to be active. The treaty was not supposed to be current. The fleet arrived anyway. I do not have a classification for this. I looked at that last sentence for a long time. Then I saved the report, filed it, and sent a formal notification to the Hegemony Regional Response Desk, advising them that the situation had been resolved and that their preliminary assessment team would not be necessary. In the resolved by field, because there was no other honest answer, I wrote, Earth.